There is the most closest and associated relationship between lust and ungratefulness. I found that when I was really struggling back in 2018, 2019 with habits that I would consider unbecoming of the best of myself, is that I had such a lackluster, ungrateful perspective and feeling for the present situation that I was in. And I think, social media certainly doesn't help because it gives us this object of comparison that is unparalleled to anything that we have experienced ever in our lives. That is very, very true. That probably is the primary reason. I mean, think about it. You can compare your life to billionaires in Dubai and California and feel like because you've got a 9 to 5 and you're making ends meet that, you're a loser in comparison to them. Yeah, perspective, very, very important. What I was going to really kind of focus on in this particular talk, guys, was this notion that lust is a state of not having, right? It's a state of believing, it's a state of craving, actually, if we're going to be very, very accurate. When your mind entertains lustful thoughts and lustful fantasies, especially in the sexual dimension, it's a craving, it's affirming to your body that you are incomplete without something, that you need to have something in order to be the recipient of any kind of pleasure in your life, right? And that is a horrible trick that you play on yourself. I mean, it's a trick that isn't even fundamentally true, because you have the whole presence. I mean, this is going to get into a spiritual kind of chat, which is actually, to be honest, some of my more favorite chats. But the idea here is that if God has given you today, you're asking when tomorrow will come, or you want tomorrow. I mean, can you imagine the cognitive dissonance? Can you imagine the perspective that God is viewing for you at? He gives you all of today. He gives you this moment to do whatever you would, and you're saying, can I have tomorrow? Can I have tomorrow? What on earth are you doing? What on earth are you doing? I've given you all this opportunity to create today, and you're still dissatisfied. In the same way, lust, when I was working a 9 to 5, I remember I was getting up at 6 a.m, going to the gym. I had to drive an hour to commute to a greater London town. And I used to work for a healthcare educating group, and I used to go around and I actually used to support a lot of healthcare staff in terms of their understandings of the kinds of patients they were looking after, if they're looking after, patients with dementia or whatever the case may be is. I mean, it was actually a great job, but that wasn't my perspective in the moment. My perspective in the moment was, I have to do this. I have to do this. And that's an interesting phrasing. It's a really interesting phrasing. I was speaking with a client. I was offboarding a client, actually, and we were talking about the steps that we had in play in order to get him where he wanted to go. And then we were talking about barriers. I was saying, what can prevent you from actually achieving your goals? Because he wanted to lose some weight, and he had aspirations to get into the property market and trading. And I said, what can stop you? And he said, probably only myself. Probably only myself can stop you. Can stop me. And I said, why is that? Is that complacency? And he said, no, I don't think it's complacency necessarily, because I know what I have to do. I just think maybe day-to-day ungratefulness. I was like, what do you mean by that? Well, I don't want to make it appear like what I'm doing is an obligation. I mean, think about that. I don't want to make it appear like what I'm doing I'm obligated to do. It's an opportunity. And I love the way that that's phrased, because it speaks to this cognitive dissonance that, or modern neurosis that a lot of man and woman have, that you have to do something, right? You have to go to the gym to lose weight, to build muscle. I think about it in the complete different way. It's no, I get to do this. I get to go to the gym. I get to, be present with my body. I see going to the gym as almost like a moving meditation. I get to connect, I get to kind of detach from, my thought process. I like to come back home to my body. I get to really connect with the movement. If I'm doing a pull day, like feeling all the muscles in my lats and my rhomboids and my traps and my biceps, and focusing on short head versus long head. Maybe I do some reverse curls, some forearms. I really see it as such a beautiful opportunity that I look forward to most days, and rest day comes around far too soon for me. And even on rest days, I'm doing some kind of, active walking, or maybe I'm doing some stretching, maybe I'm doing some, deep breathing, some meditation, some yoga, to really get into the hip flexors and expand my hips, and maybe release some tension in my lower back. Maybe I do some foam rolling. Like the opportunity, and I'm speaking specifically for exercise here, but the opportunity to get to move your body is really that. It's an opportunity, it's not an obligation. But it depends on who you ask, and I really believe the individuals that, and I know it might sound, oh, that's obvious, Joseph. The individuals who are fit and healthy are the individuals who see it from a perspective of an opportunity, as those who maybe see it as a perspective from an obligation, right? And lust is the latter. Lust is the latter. It's recognizing that I have to do something. Yeah, think about that. Lust is an obligation, thinking, oh, if I experience lust, that I'm obligated to act upon it. And that's the number one thing I teach against in my Sexual Energy Mastery course. It's the difference between observing emotion and being identified with an emotion. Identification is you've already lost the game. Is you're obligated. Oh, because I feel this energy of lust, of craving, therefore I must buy that pizza. Yeah, because I feel the emotion of lust, therefore I must go on to those horrendous websites. Yeah, or just because I feel an emotion of lust, I must cheat on my girlfriend or my wife. But that makes you a slave. Like that chains you up. That literally chains you up when you have that perspective. And again, the things that started to change for me in my life, and as I started to mitigate lust, was viewing it from an obligation as opposed to, an opportunity. Because an opportunity has an element of consciousness in it, right? You can, and I think the difference is I wouldn't necessarily categorize it as lust when you are intentionally involved in pleasure, because it's really important for me to say that I don't think pleasure is an evil thing. It's not a bad thing. It depends on your relationship with pleasure. I actually believe the intentional choice to experience pleasure is more a form of joy, right? So this idea that, let's take nutrition for example. I mentioned this idea of, because you feel lustful and craving that you have to order that takeout. But I believe that is a completely different thing to maybe having some friends around and going, having like the intention before they come around to go, let's enjoy like a nice takeout together. Let's enjoy. That's interesting, the word, isn't it? Enjoy. To indulge in joy, not in pleasure. Like when you're sitting on the sofa and it's late at night and you're too lazy to make yourself dinner, it's not I wouldn't call that to enjoy. I would call that to indulge, because that comes from a kind of weak place. It comes from apathy. But the other one is kind of like premeditated. No, let's all get together and let's enjoy a better takeout. We've been good this week. At the end of the week, we've planned to go and enjoy something together. So there's consciousness there, there's intention there, there's something again that's premeditated. You've thought about it before it has happened. And that is a completely different thing to being reactive. To, oh, if I feel this particular emotion, therefore I must act upon it. And understanding those differences is everything. Not just in lust in the sexual context, but lust in terms of when you're, I have friends that, previous friends that were alcoholics, and in that same way they had that lustful fantasy about indulging paraphernalia that would change their consciousness and get them high, or smoke too much cannabis, or do coke, and that's it. It's an obligation. You've made yourself a slave. You've bound yourself, and that's just not accurate or representative of the immortal soul that you are. It is a mistake, it is a lie, it is unbecoming of you to reduce your being to your body and to your mind. To believe that you are only your brain and only your body is a lie. It's not true. It's reductionist. You are a luminous, immortal being. That's fundamentally what you are. And to reduce yourself to the level of the small pitter-patter of lust and emotions on your body, if you feel some craving, if you feel some lust, that you must be compelled to act on it, is just so, it falls so short of the infinity of what you are. And one of the greatest ways to experience that infinity is in being present and in being grateful. So we're kind of coming full circle in this video here. The most important thing is to fundamentally feel the infinity of the moment. That's why meditation, I believe, is indispensable to mitigating lust or any negative emotion in your life, because you come home to the gratefulness and the truth that the present moment is the only thing that's really real. I mean, think about it. Yesterday doesn't exist. Tomorrow doesn't exist. 5 minutes ago doesn't exist. 10 minutes ago doesn't exist. It is only the here and now that is truly real, and that's what you have. But many people delude themselves into thinking that they cannot utilize this moment to their advantage, to create art, to live. They're waiting. They're constantly waiting. And these are the individuals who are typically in lust. I mean, I see some guys and they walk and talk and they appear to the average person that they are not already dead. But you look in their eyes and there's no lights. There's no lights behind their eyes. They have already, they're waiting on the next hit of dopamine. They're waiting to smoke. They're waiting to drink. They're waiting to cheat on their girlfriend, And they don't realize the gift of the present moment that they can use for joy. When they bring their consciousness into that moment, they can create, fundamentally joy, which is more satiating, and that's the point. It's the analogy I always give with this is it's the difference between eating, something for pleasure and eating something for these guys have a death wish, and eating something for nutritional purposes that is satiating, more satiating, more fulfilling, more permeating into you. You eat a big, pizza. It's got lots of carbohydrates in, and you may feel full. That's not true. You're not satiated. You've deluded your body into thinking that you've given it the nutrients that you require. It's not true. It's not even nearly true. What is more important is that you give yourself the sustenance that is required to experience the fullness of the moment, having your body firing on all cylinders. That is a gift. That is true. So guys, be grateful. Understand that lust is not an obligation. It is but a fleeting and passing thing. And these aren't theories, they're facts. Speak soon.